what's going on? If you struggle with fretboard navigation and you have trouble putting together solos, I've put together 3 licks for you to practice and internalize. That way it'll be easier connecting the dots on the guitar neck. All these licks take place in the key of E minor. So let's go ahead and check out the lick. Okay, so let's go ahead and break down the first lick. We'll start with measure 1. Here we have a looping E minor pentatonic pattern, and we're in the 3rd position. So this alternating pattern just takes place on 2 strings, the high E string and the B string. And we're just repeating the notes G, A, B. It seems really simple, but it helps your mind to start seeing fretboard positions. And it's something that we can make a lick out of. And the way that you're going to want to hit this is you're going to want to start the first 2 notes with a downstroke. So almost like a sweeping motion, like a gliding motion, you know what I'm talking about. And then the 3rd note, you're going to want to upstroke it and then just repeat this picking process. Try not to move your elbow up and down when you're doing this. It's all about wrist control. I had actually been playing guitar for a while before I learned this technique, and I will say it can be a little challenging with the picking pattern, but you know, just a little practice, you'll be able to hit it very smoothly. So this beginning section here is pretty much just a launching pad to the next measure, where we hit the 4th position of the E minor pentatonic. We use the same pattern, but only the notes change. Let's go ahead and check it out. So now we're in the 4th position of the E minor pentatonic, but notice the pattern doesn't change. All we did is just took away a note and then added a new one. And in the key of E minor, all these notes are diatonically safe because we're just using the pentatonic scale. So now we're looping the notes A, B, D, and D is the minor 7th of E. So this is going to give us a minor soulful type sound. And we're still utilizing the same strings as before. So our picking pattern stays the same, but our finger position shifts. Sonically, we're going up in pitch. So on the fretboard, you can see where we're navigating higher up. Think of this as musical climbing in a way. We're moving upward, but we're on familiar territory. We're on familiar stairs. I don't want you to see these as isolated shapes. I want you to see these as movable and repeatable patterns. Let's go ahead and take a look at measure 3. Okay, so there seems to be something interesting happening in measure 3. I've added some outside embellishment, but first let's look at the beginning. So we're using the same looping pattern in the E minor pentatonic, but this time we've kind of navigated our way all the way to the 5th position. So if we look at the start of the piece all the way up until now, we have done this looping pattern in the 3rd position, the 4th position, and then now we are hitting the 5th position. So now we're hitting the notes B, D, E, and with all solos and licks, we want to tell a story with it. We want it to go somewhere. We have to learn how to land the plane, right? We do not want to just take off full ludicrous speed, you know, and then just never come down, never slow down. So to bring this lick to a closure, I've added some non-diatonic notes, which are D sharp and C sharp. Now I could go on and say I borrowed these notes from a parallel key or a parallel scale or this or that, but really their purpose is just to be used as chromatic passing tones. They're really here just to give us a little flavor, just so the piece isn't so predictable. We're going through this looping pentatonic pattern in the beginning, and the listener's ear can kind of get accustomed or used to this sound, and they kind of can predict where the music is going, right? So this outside embellishment is just so the music isn't so predictable, kind of like a little nice surprise. And notice on the non-diatonic notes, I hit them pretty fast. I don't stay, I don't linger on them. They are not our true home. They are just a pit stop on the way to home. You know what I'm saying? So I ended this note on a B, which is the perfect 5th of E. Not the most resolving note on this key, but I chose this note because I wanted to add a little bit of diatonic tension leading into the next lick. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at lick number 2. Okay, Okay, so here we have a couple of my favorite ways to navigate the fretboard. For measure 4, we're pretty much just descending through an E minor natural scale. So we start off with the high E string and we make our way through each string and we stop on the A string. So we're descending in pitch now. So for the high E string and B strings, we're doing alternate picking. And then for the G and D strings, I'm doing pull-offs. But when I get to the pull-offs, you want to switch your picking. So I don't use alternate picking for that. I do upstrokes for those pull-offs. To me, it just utilizes less energy on your hand and makes the music sound smoother as well. So this little run here leads you into an F sharp that is half bent up to a G and then back down to F sharp. So this is actually setting your fretting hand up closer to where it needs to be for the next move. Okay, so for measure 5 leading into measure 6, we're pretty much just pulling off and sliding our way through the E minor pentatonic scale. So similarly how we were navigating through the E minor pentatonic in the first lick, but we were using looping patterns, well now we're doing pretty much the same thing but with slides and pull-offs. So we'll be making our way through the 3rd position, the 4th position, the 5th position, and then this lick ends in the 1st position of the E minor pentatonic. So you'll notice at the start of measure 5 I have a little bit of chromaticism. So I hit a D sharp, and an E. So the D sharp just gives us a little bit of tension before launching into the pentatonic climb. You know, using pentatonic scales to create licks and solos is very safe diatonically, right? So sometimes it's good to add a little bit of outside notes, non-diatonic notes, in order to, you know, spice things up a bit, keep the flavor, keep the color going, you know. But it's all about which diatonic note. But it's all about which non-diatonic notes to hit. So D sharp is considered a neighboring outside note, you know. So we have E and we have D. Both of these notes are diatonic to E minor. So which one's in between? D sharp. It's a non-diatonic note hit with intention. Focus on connecting every slide cleanly when shifting positions. It's not necessarily supposed to sound like, okay, we're gonna start here at the 5th fret of the A string, right? And then teleport all the way to the G note on the high E string, right? You know, we have to have the moments, the build up leading up to where this lick is taking us. So when we look at measure 6, this is pretty much all about emotion and feel, not really about speed. We have a pure pentatonic moment here. We hit the 1st, the minor 3rd, and the perfect 4th. So the bend and release from G to A and back to G is pretty much the emotional fall. Think of it as a period at the end of a sentence. So all this solo, all this lick, and this is where it was leading up to. You know what I'm saying? So now we make our way to measure 7. So we're pretty much just descending our way through an E natural minor scale. Okay, so here we have a bit of a speed burst, but it's not so much about the speed, it's about hitting these notes cleanly and accurately. It's about keeping control, right? While I utilize mostly pull-offs, I do hit a couple of hammer-ons here. We're weaving through multiple scale positions horizontally on the neck. So you'll notice here that we're not really locked into a single pentatonic shape. You know, we're wheeling and dealing, we're moving across the fretboard. If you're learning this type of lick for the first time, it might be a little challenging, especially with the speed that it's hit. But I promise you, if you just practice it and just memorize the pattern, like memorize the sequence, and it will be a lot smoother, a lot easier. Seeing where you're gonna go before you get there really helps tremendously. So towards the middle of measure 8, near where the pull-offs are ending, I hit a non-diatonic A sharp note. So why is it there? Again, just like the other non-diatonic notes, this is used to create unpredictability. It's used to give us some tension and color, which is resolved once we head back to the E minor natural scale. So at the end of measure 8, I have this 3-note per string shred type style. So now let's head to the final measure 9. This is where everything has been leading up to. So here things are coming to a close. At the start of this measure, I have some more chromatic movement. I hit an A to an A sharp to a B, which gives us some good tension and color right before we resolve. E and A and D and G are both perfect fourths. I like to use these for diatonic tension. The perfect fourth intervals aren't really the most stable, so I like to use these to create tension with notes that are taken from our parent scale. And then we bring everything to a finish with an E5 power chord. If we look at the solo as a whole, everything just rings E minor pentatonic. These licks are powerful on their own, but I managed to combine them to create a solo that will help you with your fretboard navigation techniques. See how I created tension, anticipation, harmony, and release? That's how we take our theory, technique, and feel and just turn it into great music. Learning the fretboard can often be a lengthy process, but if you practice these licks enough, hopefully you'll be able to see your fretboard just a little more clearly. And don't just play this piece, but feel it, you know? That's where your identity as a player shines. Give it your own character. So with these licks, you're learning how to connect the fretboard with motion, purpose, and expression. And it's done in a way that sounds like a real solo and not just a dry exercise. And that wraps up the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you. If you liked this video and learned anything from it and you want to see more guitar theory, guitar lick videos, please hit subscribe and give me a like. I really appreciate it. I also want to say that I have a link in the description to my Patreon page. There you can find all the downloadable PDF files and the guitar profiles of all the lessons that I do, along with some special engagement that I don't do here on YouTube. If any of you guys play guitar, go ahead and drop a comment. I would love to hear about your guitar playing journey. I want you guys to practice these licks, make them your own, and most importantly, have fun with it. God bless you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. When we talk about unlocking the fretboard, we're really talking about discovery, realizing there's more on this instrument than we first saw. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 25, verse 2, the scripture says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings is to search it out." God can hide truth, wisdom, and creativity, not to keep us out, but to invite us deeper in. When God does this, it whets our appetite. It makes us want to search for Him even more. God's a revealer of mysteries, and He wants to reveal so much to us, but we have to meet Him halfway. We must be hungry for God. Get into His Word. Get into prayer. Every time you connect a new scale pattern or uncover a new sound, it's a reflection of that same spiritual journey. We honor God by searching, by digging into the mysteries He's woven into both music and life. I encourage you to use the musical gifts that God gave you to advance His kingdom. So when you're practicing these licks, don't just unlock the fretboard. Let God unlock something new in you.